All right, folks. You guys remember after the 2012 election that the GOP, after getting their butts whooped, they did a study. It's called their autopsy on what happened in that election. Well, this is that study, the Growth and Opportunity Project. As you can see there, there's their table of contents. An introduction, Growth and Opportunity Project by the numbers, messaging, demographic partners, campaign mechanics, friends and allies, fundraising, campaign finance, primary process, and compilations of recommendations. Okay, I'm going to leave a link to this actual document so that those that are interested can read it for themselves, but I'm going to jump to certain categories so that you can see for yourself what they said. Now, the first category I want to jump to is messaging. That's not it, but that's a little information for the 52,000 contacts they made and information. And again, I'm going to leave the link so that you can go in and read for yourself. But I'm going to read certain portions of this. Introduction to messaging. The GOP today is a tale of two parties. One of them, the gubernatorial wing, is growing and successful. The other, the federal wing, is increasingly marginalizing itself, and unless changes are made, it will be increasingly difficult for Republicans to win another presidential election in the near future. Now let me stop there. The reason that the gubernatorial wing is growing and successful is because of the actions that governors in GOP-controlled states, governors and legislatures, are taking in order to firm up their power bases. I say that and use North Carolina as an example, but you can find these examples pretty much everywhere. It's called gerrymandering. It's called creating laws that are restrictive as far as allowing the populace to vote on an equal footing. If you're not aware of it, North Carolina passed some of the most restrictive voting laws probably in the recent history. I'm not going to say in total U.S. history, because there were some laws that just straight out cut off black folks from being able to vote. So I'm going to say in recent history, let's say the past 50 plus years. Fortunately, the Court of Appeals, which was a 3-member panel, struck down those laws in a unanimous fashion. There were 2 white judges on the Court of Appeals and 1 black judge. And the report that they issued was so scathing, in my mind, it was embarrassing, and the state of North Carolina, governor and legislature, should have tucked their tail between their legs and just let it go. But they decided that they wanted to appeal to the Supreme Court to try to get their restrictive laws reinstated. Fortunately, Anton Scalia passed, which created the 4-4 conservative versus progressive debate within the court. If you're not aware, anytime there's a 4-4 decision, the ruling of the lower court will stand. And as predicted, all 4 of the conservative judges wanted to allow the laws to be reinstated, and all 4 of the progressive judges wanted to make sure that the laws were struck down. 4-4 means lower court ruling stands, means that the laws were struck down. Excuse me. I cannot believe that the 4 conservative judges, after reading the opinion of the lower court, took the position that they did. But I've done another video regarding that. Let me continue to read the message. Republicans have lost the popular vote in 5 of the last 6 presidential elections. States in which our presidential candidates used to win, such as New Mexico, Colorado, Nevada, Iowa, Ohio, New Hampshire, Virginia, and Florida, are increasingly voting Democratic. We are losing in too many places. It has reached a point where in the past 6 presidential elections, 4 have gone to the Democratic nominee, of an average yield of 327 electoral votes to 211 for the Republican. During the preceding 2 decades, from 1968 to 1988, Republicans won 5 out of 6 elections, averaging 417 electoral votes to Democrats' 113. Public perception of the party is at record lows. Young voters are increasingly rolling their eyes at what the party represents, and many minorities wrongly think that Republicans do not like them or want them in the country. When someone rolls their eyes at us, they are not likely to open their ears to us. At the federal level, much of what Republicans are doing is not working beyond the core constituencies that make up the party. On the state level, however, it is a different story. Republicans hold governorships in 30 states with 315 electoral votes, the most governors either party has had in 12 years, and 4 short of the all-time GOP high of 34 governors who served in the 1920s. Now, there's a reason for that. And the reason for that is a lot of these governorships are obviously in what we can call Republican-controlled states. And their elections in a lot, if not most cases, are held in off years. Democrats have a piss poor record of voting in elections in off years, and in particular, the minority communities do not come out in large numbers during off-year elections. So, when the Republican governors and legislators come out to be elected, the Republicans have their acts together and they get state representatives and governors elected. Well, once they get elected and they are in the majority in their state legislatures, they start passing laws and bills and other things that tend to restrict the votes of minorities and, in particular, Democrats. Though the Democrats basically do it to themselves. Well, hell, when you got a Republican governor and a Republican-controlled legislature, what the hell do you expect? They are not going to loosen their requirements on voting. They're going to tighten them. They're going to try to restrict people from voting that they don't believe will vote for them. So what we need to do, instead of Democrats, and in particular minorities, coming out in numbers during presidential election years, we need to come out every time there's a goddamn election to have our voices heard. Let me continue. Republican governors are America's reformers in chief. Yeah, right. They continue to deliver on conservative promises of reducing the size of government while making people's lives better. They routinely win a much larger share of the minority vote than GOP presidential candidates, demonstrating an appeal that goes beyond the base of the party. That's not true. What ends up happening is they win a larger share of the minority vote that is cast, not a larger share of the overall minority vote, because the overall minority vote normally is sitting in their houses watching TV or doing something else. It is time for Republicans on the federal level to learn from successful Republicans on the state level. It is time to smartly change course, modernizing the party, and learn once again how to appeal to more people, including those who share some but not all of our conservative principles. At our core, Republicans have comfortably remained the party of Reagan without figuring out what comes next. Ronald Reagan is a Republican hero and a role model who was first elected 33 years ago, meaning no one under the age of 51 today was old enough to vote for Reagan when he first ran for president. Our party knows how to appeal to older voters, but we have lost our way with younger ones. We sound increasingly out of touch. As Mike Gerson and Pete Weiner wrote recently, it is no wonder that Republican policies can seem stale. They are very nearly identical to those offered up by the party more than 30 years ago. For Republicans to design an agenda that appeals to the conditions of 1980 is as if Ronald Reagan designed his agenda for conditions that existed in the Truman years. The Republican Party needs to stop talking to itself. We have become expert in how to provide ideological reinforcement to like-minded people, but devastatingly, we have lost the ability to be persuasive with or welcoming to those who do not agree with us on every issue. Instead of driving around in circles on an ideological cul-de-sac, we need a party whose brand of conservatism invites and inspires new people to visit us. We need to remain America's conservative alternative to big government, redistribution to extreme liberalism, while building a route into our party that is a non-traditional Republican will want to travel. Our standard should not be universal purity, it should be a more welcoming conservatism. Some people say Republicans don't care. Jack Kemp used to say, no one cares what you know until they know you care. The perception revealed in polling that the GOP does not care about people is doing great harm to the party and its candidates on the federal level, especially in presidential years. It is a major deficiency that must be addressed. One of the contributors to this problem is that while Democrats tend to talk about people, Republicans tend to talk about policy. Our issues can sound distant and removed from people's lives. Instead of connecting with voters' concerns, we too often sound like bookkeepers. We need to do a better job connecting people to our policies. We are the party of private sector economic growth because that is the best way to create jobs and opportunity. That is the best way to help people earn an income, achieve success, and take care of their families. But if we're going to grow as a party, our policies and actions must take into account that the middle class has struggled mightily and that far too many of our citizens live in poverty. To people who are flat on their back, unemployed or disabled, and in need of help, they do not care if the help comes from the private sector or the government. They just want help. Our job as Republicans is to champion private growth so people will not turn to the government in the first place. But we must make sure that the government works for those truly in need, helping them so they can quickly get back on their feet. We must be driven by reform, eliminating and fixing what is broken, while making sure the government's safety net is a trampoline, not a trap. As Ida Fisher, the Republican National Committee woman from North Carolina, told us, there are some people who need the government. Our policies must lead people to a better life through a thriving, growing private sector that works for the middle class and those in need. As Senator Marco Rubio said, what people who are struggling want more than anything is a chance to make it in life. The Republican Party must be the champion of those who seek to climb the economic ladder of life. Low-income Americans are hardworking people who want to become hardworking middle-income Americans. Middle-income Americans want to become upper middle income Americans, and so on. We need to help everyone make it in America. We have to blow the whistle of corporate malfeasance and attack corporate welfare. We should speak out when a company liquidates itself and its executives receive bonuses, but rank and file workers are left unemployed. We should speak out when CEOs receive tens of millions of dollars in retirement packages, but middle-class workers have not had a meaningful raise in years. If we believe our policies are the best ones to improve the lives of the American people, all the American people, our candidates and office holders need to do a better job talking in normal, people-oriented terms, and we need to go to communities where Republicans do not normally go to listen and make our case. We need to campaign among Hispanic, Black, Asian, and gay Americans and demonstrate we care about them too. We must recruit more candidates who come from minority communities, but it is not just tone that counts. Policy always matters. A part of the Growth and Opportunities Project's effort, focus groups were conducted in Columbus, Ohio and Des Moines, Iowa to listen to voters who used to consider themselves Republicans. These are voters who recently left the party. Asked to describe Republicans, they said that the party is scary, narrow-minded, and out of touch, and that we were a party of stuffy old men. This is consistent with the findings of other post-election surveys. Recommendations. The Grand Old Party should be synonymous with the name Growth and Opportunity Party. Number 2, the Republican Party needs to stop talking to itself. We have become expert in how to provide ideological reinforcement to like-minded people, but devastatingly, we have lost the ability to be persuasive with or welcoming to those who do not agree with us on every issue. Number 3, it is time for Republicans on the federal level to learn from successful Republicans on the state level. It is time to smartly change course, modernize the party, and learn once again how to appeal to more people, including those who share some but not all of our conservative principles. The perception that the GOP does not care about people is doing great harm to the party and its candidates on the federal level, especially in presidential years. It is a major deficiency that must be addressed. We need to do a better job connecting people to our policies. Our ideas can stand distant and removed from people's lives. Our ideas can sound distant and removed from people's lives instead of connecting with voters' concerns. We too often sound like bookkeepers. The Republican Party must be the champion of those who seek to climb the economic ladder of life. Low-income Americans are hardworking people who want to become hardworking middle-income Americans. Middle-income Americans want to become upper middle income, and so on. We need to help everyone make it in America. Number 7, we have to blow the whistle on corporate malfeasance and attack corporate welfare. We should speak out when a company liquidates itself and its executives receive bonuses, but rank-and-file workers are left unemployed. We should speak out when CEOs receive tens of millions of dollars in retirement packages, but middle-class workers have not had a meaningful raise in years. Number 8, if we believe our policies are the best to improve the lives of the American people, all the American people, our candidates and office holders need to do a better job of talking in normal, people-oriented terms, and we need to go to communities where Republicans do not normally go to listen and make our case. We need to campaign among Hispanic, Black, Asian, and gay Americans and demonstrate that we care about them too. Okay, I'm going to jump to the section that specifically speaks to blacks and Hispanics. And again, I have not read this entire thing. I'm going to read it after I make this video. But I encourage you also to go in and read the entire report for yourselves. It is imperative that Hispanics, I'm sorry. It is imperative that the RNC changes how it engages with Hispanic communities to welcome in new members of our party. If Hispanic Americans hear that the GOP doesn't want them in the United States, they won't pay attention to our next sentence. It doesn't matter what we say about education, jobs, or the economy if Hispanics think that we do not want them here. They will close their ears to our policies. In essence, Hispanic voters tell us our party's position on immigration has become a litmus test, measuring whether we are meeting them with a welcome mat or a closed door. Too often, Republican elected officials spoke about issues important to the Hispanic community using a tone that undermined the GOP brand within Hispanic communities. Repairing that relationship will require both a tone that welcomes in as well as substantial time spent in the community demonstrating a commitment to addressing its unique concerns. As one participant in a regional listening session noted, the key problem is that the Republican Party's message offends too many people unnecessarily. We win the economic message, which is the most important to voters, but we lose them when we discuss other issues. President George W. Bush used to say, "Family values don't stop at the Rio Grande," and a hungry mother is going to try to feed her child. This tone, coupled with the long-standing relationship with Hispanics he built as governor, demonstrated to the Hispanic community that Republicans cared equally about all Americans. Because his tone was inclusive and his effort to build a relationship was long-term, Hispanic Americans were willing to listen to his principles and policies on education, jobs, spending, and other issues. Hispanics want to know our party wants no less for them than for any other American. They want to know that we are not just the party for those at the top of the economic ladder, because our dream of a better life is for them too. This path is still open to us. It was only 8 years ago that President Bush received 44% of the Hispanic vote, a modern-day record for a Republican presidential candidate. It is encouraging that there are many Republican leaders both in the House and the Senate working on immigration proposals. As the party advocates for positive solutions on immigration, we will be more successful appealing to Hispanic voters on other issues. This includes policies the Republican Party has not really emphasized, yet which have especially high levels of support in Hispanic communities. Perhaps no policy demonstrates the depth of our party's commitment to all Americans as strongly as school choice. Our promise of equal opportunity in education to all children regardless of color, class, or origin. In addition, the RNC must improve how it markets its core principles and message in Hispanic communities, especially in Hispanic faith-based communities. These communities care about relationships, not just politics. Democrats have built relationships with Hispanics while Republicans have faltered. According to the listening sessions, Hispanics believe that Republicans have not had an effective Hispanic engagement program since President George W. Bush's re-election campaign. We need to build a team that is one with the Hispanic community. It is also a fair criticism that Republicans do not do enough to elevate Hispanic leaders within the party infrastructure. This includes not just candidates running for office, but also senior decision makers in the RNC's infrastructure. These personnel should not be pigeonholed into demographic outreach, but should be promoted to positions to develop political strategy and provide input on all budgeting decisions. The RNC must rebuild a nationwide database of Hispanic leaders and donors that can be a resource to the Republican community at large. Democratic organizations have successfully built a voter registration effort for new citizenship ceremonies where they register new voters on a weekly basis. Republican organizations have to duplicate this effort and build a strategic plan to register new American citizens to vote as Republicans. The RNC must put significant effort and resources into reaching out to Hispanic media and news outlets. This needs to be a high-level presence on all Latino media. The RNC must rebuild an updated working list of Hispanic surrogates, not just RNC staff, to help carry and sell our message to the Hispanic community. Recommendations. The RNC should hire Hispanic communications directors and political directors for key states and communities across the country. Number 2, on issues like immigration, the RNC needs to carefully craft a tone that takes into consideration the unique perspective of the Hispanic community. Message development is critical to Hispanic voters. Number 3, the Republican Party is one of tolerance and respect, and we need to ensure that the tone of our message is always reflective of these core principles. In a modern media environment, a poorly phrased argument or out of context statement can spiral out of control and reflect poorly on the party as a whole. Thus, we must emphasize during candidate training, retreats, etc., the importance of a welcoming, inclusive message, in particular when discussing issues that relate directly to a minority group. The RNC should hire field staff within Hispanic communities nationally to build meaningful relationships. This cannot happen every 4 years, but needs to be a continuous effort. Number 5, promote forward-looking positive policy proposals to Hispanic communities that unite voters, such as the Republican Party support for school choice. The RNC must rebuild a nationwide database of Hispanic leaders. Number 7, the RNC must improve on promoting Hispanic staff and candidates within the party. The GOP has substantial Hispanic elected officials on all levels, and we need to ensure they are being used as surrogates both in their communities and with the national media. At the staff level, the personnel should be visible and involved in senior political and budget decisions and not be limited to demographic outreach. Number 8, engage the Hispanic faith-based community in our effort. Number 9, the RNC must rebuild a Hispanic surrogate list to promote a high-level presence in both Hispanic and mainstream media. Number 10, establish swearing-in citizenship teams to introduce new citizens, offer naturalization ceremonies to the Republican Party. Number 11, consider how to help demographic ally groups flourish and sustain traditional partners using auspices of the RNC. Number 12, the RNC should encourage individuals to participate in cultural organizations so that these organizations' leadership is no longer dominated by democratic leaning individuals. Number 13, the RNC must invest financial resources in Hispanic media. In a $1 billion campaign, much less than 1% of the total budgets was spent in Hispanic or other demographic group-oriented media. At one point during 2012 campaign, OFA was outspending us 8-1 in these media markets. If we are going to attract these groups to our party and candidates, our budgets and expenses need to reflect this importance. Number 14, develop an extensive network of Hispanic and other demographic group political operatives that can help provide continuity for Republican political candidates around the country. Number 15, the RNC and state parties should make every effort to feature and use diverse committee members. Okay, now they had a section on Asians and Pacific Islanders, and I am jumping to the section on African Americans, which, if you note, is much smaller than the section on the Hispanic information. African Americans. Similar to the approach it must take with other demographic communities, the RNC must embark on a year-round effort to engage with African American voters. The engagement must include not only persuasion based upon our party's principles, but also a presence within community organizations. There are numerous outside groups that are studying the best way for the Republican Party to better reach African American voters. The Republican Party should leverage the best practices identified by such organizations, investing time and resources in African American communities by leveraging best practices of organizations like the Texas Federation for Republican Outreach, an affiliate of the Republican Party of Texas, is essential. The African American community has a lot in common with the Republican Party, and it is important to share this rich history. More importantly, the Republican Party must be committed to building a lasting relationship within the African American community year-round based on mutual respect and with a spirit of caring. The party must also engage with each of its demographic partners and allies individually. Hispanics and Asians are not the only demographic groups emotionally invested in immigration issues. Caribbean, Jamaican, and Haitian immigrants, as well as many other black minority groups, have a vested interest in immigration policy because it affects them and their families. Recommendations. The RNC should hire African American communication directors and political directors for key states and communities across the country. The RNC should work with the RSLC to develop best practices of Republicans who were successfully elected in districts with a high population of African American voters. Number 3, establish a presence in African American communities and at black organizations such as the NAACP. We are never going to win over voters who are not asked for their support. Too many African American voters have gotten in the habit of supporting Democrats without hearing anyone in their community making a case to the contrary. The RNC should create a program that is focused on recruiting and supporting African American Republican candidates for office. Number 5, engage historically black colleges and universities, HBCUs, with the goal of educating the community on Republican ideals and the party's history. Number 6, the RNC should conduct a pilot project in several targeted urban markets to identify potential target groups of voters and to enlist support from demographic partners and allies in voter contact efforts. Big city mayoral races provide our best 2013 opportunities for these projects. The findings of these pilot projects can inform a more robust effort in the 2014 governor's races to build coalitions and greater support in urban areas. Number 7, the RNC should develop a nationwide database of African American leaders. Number 8, the RNC must improve on promoting African American staff and candidates within the party. The GOP should utilize African American elected officials as surrogates both in their communities and with the national media. At the state level, the personnel should be visible and involved in senior political and budget decisions and not be limited to demographic outreach. Number 9, the RNC must develop a national African American surrogate list to promote a high-level presence in African American media. Number 10, the RNC and state parties should make every effort to feature and use diverse community members. Okay, there's various other sections talking about women, youth, etc. All right, and again, I ask that you pull up this document, read it for yourself. One of my final comments is that the things that will work for one minority community for the most part, but not in every case, will work for all minority communities. And obviously, with each community, there are specifics that they are more focused on, and those specifics should always be concentrated upon. But it appears to me that the GOP did not read their own goddamn report, because just looking at how this election is running, they are acting counter to what this report says.